My name is Clara Bennett, and I'm 47 years old. For 19 years, I worked as a senior research engineer at Hawthorne Dynamics, a manufacturing company that grew from a regional supplier into a $94 million industry leader. If you've ever heard the executives tell the story, they'll say the company was built through bold leadership and fearless business decisions. That's only half the truth. The other half spent most of those years wearing safety glasses instead of expensive suits. I never cared about titles or corner offices. I cared about solving problems. While other people competed for promotions, I stayed inside the development lab, testing prototypes, rewriting designs, and chasing solutions everyone else insisted were impossible. My reward wasn't applause. It was watching an idea become something real. The company's founder, Edward Hawthorne, understood that. He visited the lab almost every Friday afternoon, asking more questions than giving orders. He always reminded people that innovation came from the engineers who quietly stayed long after everyone else had gone home. He made sure credit reached the people who earned it. Everything changed after Edward retired. His daughter, Melissa Hawthorne, became CEO. She seemed capable enough at first, but within months she appointed her husband, Derek Lawson, as Chief Operating Officer. Officially, Derek was there to modernize the company. Unofficially, everyone knew he had skipped years of experience simply because of his last name. Almost immediately, the atmosphere shifted. Longtime employees began disappearing one by one. Some accepted early retirement. Others were quietly replaced by younger hires willing to nod through every meeting without asking difficult questions. Experience slowly became something management treated as an unnecessary expense instead of the company's greatest strength. I noticed the pattern long before anyone else admitted it. Still, I kept my head down and focused on my work, believing results would always matter more than office politics. I was about to learn how wrong I was. The following Monday started like hundreds of others before it. I arrived just after 8, grabbed a cup of black coffee, and walked through the engineering floor, greeting the same people I'd worked beside for years. Nothing felt unusual until 9:14 a.m. An email from Human Resources appeared on my screen. Please report to conference room B immediately. I picked up my notebook, assuming it was another budget discussion. Instead, I found Derek Lawson sitting beside the HR director with a thin folder already open in front of him. Neither of them asked me to sit comfortably. That was my first clue. Derek folded his hands and spoke with rehearsed confidence. Clara, the company is moving in a different direction. We've decided to eliminate your position effective immediately. 19 years reduced to one sentence. The HR director slid several documents across the table, explaining severance, benefits, and company policy. Her voice was polite, almost apologetic. Derek, on the other hand, looked strangely satisfied, as though removing experienced employees was another item on his weekly checklist. I appreciate everything you've done, he said, without sounding like he meant it. Our younger engineering team is fully capable of carrying the project forward. I simply nodded. Understood. His expression suggested he expected an argument. He didn't get one. 10 minutes later, I placed a few framed photographs, a notebook, and my favorite coffee mug into a cardboard box. As I walked toward the lobby, dozens of coworkers quietly watched from their desks. I smiled, wished them a good morning, and stepped outside without looking back. Once I reached my car, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Then an old memory surfaced. Years earlier, when our flagship technology received patent approval, my attorney had suggested keeping the registration under my legal maiden name until several ownership documents were finalized. We had planned to update everything later. Life became busy. The paperwork never changed. Curious, I called the same patent attorney before starting my engine. After reviewing the public records for several minutes, he returned to the phone. Clara, he said carefully, the company may have overlooked something extremely important. My attorney asked me one simple question. Have you signed anything transferring ownership of the patent since it was first registered? I closed my eyes and searched my memory. No, I answered. I always assumed the company's legal department handled it after the original filing. They didn't, he replied. According to the federal records, you're still the registered owner under your maiden name, Clara Tennant. Unless there's another signed assignment somewhere, the company has a serious problem. For the first time since leaving the building, I realized this wasn't about revenge. It was about responsibility. I instructed my attorney not to contact anyone yet. I wanted to understand the situation before making a single move. 2 days later, the company proudly announced its largest expansion in history. Press releases celebrated record profits. Investors praised management. Derek appeared in interviews describing a bold new era for Hawthorne Dynamics, smiling as if the future belonged entirely to him. Then, everything changed. During a routine legal review connected to the expansion, outside counsel requested updated documentation for the company's intellectual property portfolio. It should have been a routine process. Instead, it triggered emergency meetings. Someone discovered the patent assignment records didn't match the company's ownership claims. Within hours, executives were calling lawyers. Lawyers were calling government offices. Every answer led to the same conclusion. The core technology powering their most profitable product was still legally registered to Clara Tennant. Not Clara Bennett. Not Hawthorne Dynamics. Clara Tennant. The name confused half the leadership team because hardly anyone knew my maiden name. By late afternoon, board members had canceled other meetings to deal with what had suddenly become the company's highest priority. That evening, my attorney received the first phone call. The company's general counsel requested an immediate meeting to clarify several administrative matters. My attorney smiled before placing the call on speaker. "They're finally paying attention," he said. I smiled too, but not because they were in trouble. I smiled because, after 19 years, they finally understood the value of the person they had dismissed in less than 10 minutes. The meeting was scheduled for the following morning in the same executive conference room where I had been dismissed only days earlier. This time, no one kept me waiting. The board members stood as I entered. Their attorneys introduced themselves politely, and Melissa Hawthorne thanked me for agreeing to meet. Derek Lawson sat quietly at the far end of the table, avoiding eye contact for the first time since I'd met him. My attorney placed a folder on the table containing the original patent documents, registration records, and every supporting file. The company's outside legal team reviewed each page carefully before exchanging silent glances. Finally, one of them spoke. "Miss Tennant, the records appear to confirm your ownership. We'd like to discuss a fair resolution." I nodded. "I didn't come here to embarrass anyone," I replied. "I came to protect the work I spent years creating. I wasn't interested in revenge. I wanted fairness." We spent hours negotiating a licensing agreement that recognized my intellectual property, compensated me appropriately, and guaranteed future engineers would receive proper legal protection for their inventions. I also agreed to serve as an independent consultant during the transition so customers and employees wouldn't suffer because of management's mistake. By the end of the afternoon, every document had been signed. As I prepared to leave, the chairman thanked me for handling the situation professionally. Behind him, Derek remained silent. A week later, the board announced a leadership review, and Derek's authority over company operations was quietly suspended while independent investigators examined the decisions that had led everyone to that room. 3 months later, my life looked completely different. Instead of reporting to an office every morning, I was consulting with several manufacturers who valued experience as much as innovation. I also volunteered at a local engineering program, helping young inventors understand something no textbook had ever taught me: protect your ideas as carefully as you build them. Hawthorne Dynamics continued operating under our new licensing agreement, and the board introduced stronger procedures to ensure employee inventions were properly documented and credited. It was a change many people had needed for years. Sometimes friends ask whether I regret staying quiet during that meeting at 9:14 a.m. I always give the same answer. The morning they handed me a cardboard box, they believed they were ending my career. They never realized they were handing me the strongest negotiating position of my entire life. And sometimes, respect arrives only after people discover exactly who they've underestimated.